everyone. Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm here with my co-host,
Jenny Woon.
And we have a very special guest on the show for you today. If you are a realtor, you're going to want to listen to our special guest. Her name is Jess Lenouvel. She is the founder of the Listings Lab. And a little bit about her story is that she came from a 7-figure real estate sales business. She decided to pursue her passion, which is to help realtors connect with real clients in a humane way, and she integrates a really interesting program and sales techniques into that.
What I learned the most about listening to her speak and during our conversation was being very authentic in the delivery, and you shouldn't stop yourself from opening up to your audience, because that's where you're going to connect and relate most to your clients.
Exactly, and I think her program's so interesting because it's a very different take on the traditional methods that we as realtors have been told to use in order to, connect with clients. Hers is based really in creating those relationships. So I guess without further ado, we'll go straight to the episode, but it was such a pleasure having her on, and she's incredibly knowledgeable. You guys should definitely stay tuned if you are looking to market properly to attract your best clients in a new digital marketing world.
Let's get started.
Okay.
So welcome back to In the House podcast. Let me ask you listeners one question. Are you interested in building your brand, your business, your platform to help more people? And if you're a real estate agent who has hit 100K in a year in your business and you're ready to grow in your business, you really need to listen in and tune into this podcast, because we have an awesome guest today who has been and born into the real estate business herself, worked over 14 years as an active agent. Welcome to the show, Jess.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm going to try it. Lenouvel.
It's Lenouvel. Yeah, it's very, very close.
Yeah. Well, what prompted me to touch base with you was when I was sharing my vision with my sister in wanting to transition real estate sales to real estate coaching. And she brought up your name, and I was like, okay, I didn't even know, number one, you were in real estate. Or maybe I did. You helped her with her sale and her purchase. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe with one of them, the condo, maybe.
Okay, maybe you were transitioned to coaching.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you and I actually had met before. We were her bridesmaids back in 2008.
Wow. Yep.
So it's so funny because I was seeing, you're all over Instagram sponsored ads, and I actually never clicked on it until my sister mentioned your name, and I was like, oh my God, this is Jess. This is like the person who's been on my feed getting me to sign up. So here you are.
I clicked on it. I didn't know who you were at the time, though. I was like,
oh, there you go.
Very intriguing.
So we have here Toni as well. She's our co-host on In-House Podcast. So before we dive right into what we want to share, all the knowledge and give you, I want you to give us a background of how you started this.
Sounds good. So, as Jenny mentioned, I was kind of born into the industry. My mom's been an agent for about 35 years. So I think I was like 2 or something when she first got licensed. And so I grew up kind of in the back of the car, getting kind of dragged around. And I mean, back then there was no cell phones or anything like that. It was literally like her Pearlie's map book, and sitting in the back of the car, playing with the coordinates in terms of where we were going. And so that was sort of how I grew up. When I was about 13, I started doing her paperwork. My mom is not good at paperwork. So I started doing her paperwork, and I just sort of started learning the business. I never thought I would get into real estate. I went to school for African and Caribbean studies. And then when I finished, my mom and dad, my dad's a physician. He was basically like, so now what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, well, I don't know. And so my mom basically said, why don't you get your real estate license and just see? I think you'll be good at it. Why don't you just get your real estate license and just see? And you may end up loving it. So that's what I did. I got my license. I kind of like built my business differently than most people would because, you know, I started at a Keller Williams office, and don't get me wrong, I love KW. I think it's great. But I really, you know, I am very introverted. I am not your like very extroverted person who likes to be in the limelight all the time, even though it's funny because of the business I have now. But I remember thinking, if I have to cold call and door knock and all of these things, I'm not like, this business is not for me. So I started out my business on this brand new thing called Facebook that had just come out, and they didn't have a marketplace or ad manager or anything like that at the time. It was literally just like the feed and classifieds. So I started actually prospecting in classifieds in my pajamas, because my little introverted self wanted to like be able to do as much as I could from home. And I built my business that way. And then over time, you know, all of the like digital technology and things changed, and we kind of adapted. And I mean, there's a lot of like ups and downs that happened over the 14 years, but eventually what ended up happening is I built a small team that had 3 agents on it, two main producers, and someone who didn't produce quite as much. And we were doing somewhere between 250, 300 deals a year. And everything that we did was built on, you know, online lead gen. So basically, like from there, I just kind of woke up one day and I'd gotten to a point where I felt like I wasn't being fully fulfilled by the business anymore. I'd kind of done it, and I built something that I was really happy with, but I was looking for a next step. So I actually left selling real estate. I'm still licensed, but I left selling real estate and I transitioned into creating training programs to help agents do what I did.
Now, you were telling a story because I've heard you on a podcast, and I've heard where you were talking to your husband in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like figuring out what you want to do next. Can you share us?
Yeah, Hawaii is one of those like magical places that you just like, you can't help but kind of find yourself there. We were spending some time in Hawaii. I'd never felt like more at home anywhere. I'm half Chinese, but I actually look Hawaiian. So I felt very at home there. I felt like it's kind of where I belonged. And we were driving, and I just burst into tears. And he looked over at me, and he worked with me in my real estate business. So he looked over at me and he's like, well, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't want to sell real estate anymore. Immediately, like, he looked like a deer in headlights, because he's like, well, we've built our entire lives and like everything that we do based on this real estate business, and now you're telling me you don't want to do it anymore. But he's my biggest supporter, and so it was a transition, and it took some time, but we jumped pretty quickly. And I'm Toronto based. And when we made that decision, I actually moved to California for 6 months to make sure that I was around like the best digital marketers, making sure that I was learning from like the best coaches and the best people. I grew my network, I built my team, and I built the business while I was there, and then came back. My intention was actually to come back to Vancouver, but I ended up back in Toronto.
San Diego to get all that coaching and set up your business. There's no resources in Canada or in Ontario?
There is, absolutely, but there is a big, like at the time, there was a big digital hub of online coaches, marketers living in Venice Beach. So I specifically went to Venice so that I could kind of be in the circle as well. Like, there's great resources here 100%, but I felt like for me, if I was gonna do this, I do everything kind of like all in. So I was like, you know, I'm not gonna move there forever, but I'm gonna go for 6 months, and I'm gonna essentially like engulf myself in this community so that I can get as much as possible. It was the best decision I've ever made. My entire team right now, other than like we actually onboarded 3 new people today, but my entire team up until yesterday was 100% built from connections that I made while I was there. So our main program is called the Listings Lab. We do have some other levels of programs for new agents, as well as agents who are like close, like $500,000 to 7 figures plus. But our core offer is called the Listings Lab.
And so what kind of package or what kind of price, how much are they making a year?
Usually somewhere between like 100 to, we have people in that program who are even at like 400,000 a year, but that tends to be like where it kind of settles. I would say that there's like kind of two different types of agents that fit really well in that program. One of them is like the single agent who really wants to scale, grow their business with things that are more inbound. People who are not really into like the chasing and the hustling and things like that. Like when people say, Jess, what do you do? I always just say, I help people build relationships at scale, right? So it's basically like, how can you get yourself, your message, and conversations happening with like thousands of people at a time as opposed to just one at a time? So there's those people. And then we also have, team leaders and things like that who want to provide higher quality, better business. We don't say that we generate leads. We say we generate clients, which I think is a very different way of looking at things. I think I'm kind of the mind that anyone can generate a lead, but it takes a lot more to actually generate an inbound client.
Because I know there's a couple of agents from Vancouver, and I know you probably have a lot of clients from Vancouver, but I know two of them that I follow on their social media, and their verbiage and their captions are storytelling, and kind of relate to their clients, and they're just not being off like stats or how-tos. It's stories about themselves, and I want to explore a little bit on that. But first, I want to know what makes your coaching sessions different than any other coaching sessions that are out there right now.
So we are definitely a program rather than just coaching. So the support levels for what we do in this program are extremely high, but basically what we're doing is we're running people through a proven system to build that know, like, and trust factor with the people who they're wanting to reach. So we teach both the organic marketing side and the paid traffic side. So I'm a really big believer that they work both kind of in tandem together. But I would say, we have a very strong emphasis on relationships. It's not just digital marketing. It's not just lead gen. It's not how to run an ad. It's how do you take a stranger and get them to a point where they're coming to you saying, come list my house. And how you do that in a way, there's a lot more automation in what we do than like your typical program, because the whole point is that I want to get everybody to a point where they're doing 100 deals a year and they don't have time to be calling and messaging and nurturing and doing all of the stuff that we're always taught that we have to do manually.
So the program I read is online is 12 weeks long.
It's lifetime access, but the typical agent can get through it in a 12-week period. The reason why we're the only program in the real estate world that is truly lifetime access. You never lose access to any of the mentorship, the coaching, the calls, or any of the support or the actual program itself. But one of the major benefits to the lifetime access is that you also have lifetime access to all of the updates. Digital marketing changes. I think that there's this people forget in marketing, especially in real estate marketing, this law of reciprocity, right? And really that, it's built into us as human beings. There's a lot of psychology that we teach in the program, but it's built into us to, be a lot more receptive if someone's given something to us first. So it's the idea of what does your ideal client actually need, not what do you want to say? And I think that way too much marketing out there is so agent-centric and so focused on this is what I have to say today rather than this is what my audience actually needs to hear and this is what they need from me in order to help them get where they want to go.
I do have to agree because I find that, we have so many different social media handles, the West One team, which is the team. The West One is all about just listed, just sold. We do have kind of posts here and there about our personal hobbies, the team, how we interact as a team, but we also have testimonials from our buyers. But the shift for me is the In the House podcast social media handle, because I've been able to share a lot of my personal stories. Yeah. And that's where I'm getting more fulfilled now.
It's honestly, it's more fun too to create content that way because you actually feel like you're creating connection.
Yeah. I'll be honest though, it's been really hard for me. I've cried through a couple of
Yep.
Writing them myself, and I've taken a screenshot of myself crying because I want to remember these memories. These memories. It's pretty ugly. But
it's okay. None of us are pretty criers.
but it's a good outlet for me because I'm an introvert. I feel like I'm an introvert. Like when I need to be on, I'm on for the work. Yeah. But I think the core me, I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very lucky to have really good people surrounding me right now in this room to support me through this challenge that I'm going through. Is basically just trying to let go.
Yeah. Well, I think too, there's, especially as women in an industry like real estate, it's so easy to fall into the trap of I have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And I say to people all the time, like, there's nothing that's going to hold you back like perfection or perfectionism, right? There's actually a line that I have in one of my training videos in my program that says, perfectionism is just procrastination in a cuter outfit. And I think it's so true because we tend to use perfectionism as like a barrier to get and then if you need something to be perfect, it's never going to get done. And even from a marketing perspective, people really want to work with other like real human beings, right? Like real estate, as much as like we can get so transactional on like the real estate side of it, real estate is actually incredibly personal. It's incredibly emotional, and people make decisions using logic and emotion, but we make decisions emotionally first, and then we back the decisions up with logic. And I think so many agents are so focused on the logical side, the numbers, the I'm number one, even the like old school I'll buy your house stuff. If we're not using emotion or that element of human connection, we're really missing the most powerful part that marketing can play. And I think that also people don't move because it's fun. Like moving, there's nothing fun about moving, but we do it because we have this, it's just basic sales, right? Current situation, desired situation. And their current situation for their lives, it's not working anymore. Whether they're upsizing or downsizing or first time buyer or whatever the situation is, they're fulfilling a vision through the move. So understanding from a psychological perspective what's not working where they are now and what they're hoping to accomplish with this move is actually far more powerful from a marketing, messaging, connection perspective than anything else, than any testimonial or any like sales stat.
So let's get to talking about the core of the business. The fundamentals. So you talked about the mentorship, the online access that's lifetime. So work us through what happens when they sign up and then from there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is actually going to be, I think this will be easier to explain this way. So the program is lifetime access, but it's broken into two parts. There's the actual course itself, which is the programming part of it, and then there's the support side of what we do, which is obviously the most important part. So the course is online modules that take you through exactly what you need to know and how to create what you need to each week. So you watch the course modules, you do whatever works associated with that week's content. You have lifetime access to the course as well. So if you, like, let's say that there's an update that's coming, you'd get a notification from us that says, hey, Facebook's about to change this. If you don't want this to affect your marketing, here's the adjustment. Let us know if you need help. Now, on the support side, there are 3 different main points of support. There's 2 calls every week for life. There's also a support community to make sure you have questions answered and you have support every single day. Now, this is way more support than the average agent needs. I've built it out like this, honestly. I've gone through pretty much every marketing program you can think of out there. And a lot of the time it's the support that is really kind of lacking, where you get like a copy and paste response from someone, or you're not getting access to the people who actually really know their stuff. You're getting access to the VAs and things like that that are just kind of like responding based on like their cut and paste.
So yourself?
Pardon?
Taking these calls yourself?
So I take one of them. I take one call a week, and also I'll run you through the calls. I think this will be helpful. So the first call every week is with me. I make sure that no question goes unanswered. You have lifetime access to the calls. They're also all recorded and banked. So you've got access to all the recorded calls, and you can come to them live for life. Absolutely anything is game on my calls. A lot of it is marketing related, but I've helped people hire, fire, profit and loss tracking, back-end systems, difficult clients, whatever people need, they can get on that call. The second call every week is for when you're at the ads part of the program or beyond. It's an ads clinic. It's run by two people on my team. My head of marketing, who's been my head of marketing for 8 or 9 years. He was with me when I went from 0 to 7 figures in 6 months. He's Canadian. Our entire team is Canadian. Our marketing team is Canadian based on purpose, because it is definitely harder to market in Canada than it is in the US. And so we also have another woman on our team. She is a messaging wizard. She's one of those people who can just like get into an ad, tweak a couple of words, and it will like perform like wildfire. So the two of them, they run those ads calls. Those ones are also lifetime access, and they're also all recorded. The biggest difference between the two calls: the ads calls are of course ad focused, but they're also mostly screen shares. So instead of just answering a question verbally, they're going to open up an account and show you step by step exactly how to do what you're asking. If you want them to do it for you, they will, but then they're going to show you on your screen, and then you always have the recording to fall back on. And then, so those are the two calls. Then the third point of support is a private member-only Facebook group. So my normal, like my general agent Facebook group has about 14,000 agents in it. This one's not, that's not this group. It's small. It's only for the people who are in the program. We use this for all of our daily messaging. So in there, you have access to me, my ads experts, head of marketing, graphic designers, PR experts. So we push a lot of PR and a lot of media in our program as well as like, so I said graphic designers, PR, and copywriters. So we have basically everything that anybody could need in that group, and you have access to that for life too.
That's already a wealth of information. That's because amazing. I do have to say I'm one of the 14,000 members on your family. And it is already so useful. Like the information that you put out there is relatable, it's actionable, and it's real. It's things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as an agent.
Yep.
I see some agents from Vancouver commenting too.
Oh, I'm going to be the next comment.
Yeah. Okay, so after, so they're getting all these services and online access. What kind of expectations do you give them, or what are they expecting out of you?
Yeah, I would say that, like, so in terms of like average results, people who actually build out and are coachable and like follow the program, which is not, of course, not everyone. I would say that like the average agent doubles or triples their business. So within the first within the first 6 months to a year. And then from there, everything would compound from there. So we have agents we've got agents in like Toronto and Vancouver and things like that, and in the States, who have come into the program, say at 200, and have finished the calendar year at 7 figures. So there's a tremendous amount of growth opportunity through it really depends on how committed and how much someone shows up.
Mm-hmm. Taking away how the market performance is, because I know Vancouver performs very different from Toronto, from New York.
Yep.
See, there's a pattern in the different markets.
I would say that there are definitely markets that are more competitive in terms of ads, right? So like somewhere like New York or somewhere like Toronto, like there's a lot of competition for those ads. And so the way that we teach marketing through storytelling, through value first, the give before you ask, serve before you sell mentality, our ads tend to perform a lot better than like your typical just throw a bunch of stuff up. I think there's a lot of people in real estate, unfortunately, who really don't know what they're doing from a marketing perspective. And so they just kind of copy each other. And it's kind of the blind leading the blind. And I think that it's so important to have a strategy, and it's not just throw an ad up, collect a bunch of phone numbers and email addresses. Because really, at the end of the day, you have, and that's why I think so many people think that Facebook leads or online leads are such low quality. Well, of course they are, if that's all you're doing with them. But it's the retargeting, or it's the what I call omnipresence, that really is the kicker. It's basically what will psychologically take someone from stranger to client. And so, like, when you meet someone for the first time, you don't really care what they have to say unless you know that they know what they're talking about. So the first thing that we need to do in any funnel like that would be to build authority. So that's going to be through authority content, authority value, process, solution, which I can explain in a second, case studies and testimonials, PR. That's more like authority building content. And then we slowly add in things like personal beliefs, personal philosophy, personal story, because those are your human connectors. And I think a lot of people don't realize that people need to feel trust with a brand and trust with you as an agent before anything will ever be inbound. Because there's a lot of, real estate agents, we all know this, we don't have the best reputation in the world. And people see us as just like we are hard salespeople. And as soon as someone feels that trust or that connection or that comfort level, it completely changes the conversation. And people are able to kind of come to you without that, like, oh my gosh, I have to be careful and I have to protect myself part of it. The process solution part that I kind of skipped over, there's something that we really heavily rely on is the idea of every agent having their own signature process or their own expert methodology. And the reason why that I think that's so important is every expert in every industry has a process or a proven system, except most people in real estate. So the public's perception of realtors is that we all just do exactly the same thing and that we're all just sort of fly by the seat of our pants. And that trust level or that expertise, so this kind of ties into the authority, but it also ties into like the comfort level and the trust that this process or this methodology specifically addresses the major pains and problems of that ideal client base that this person's targeting, as well as differentiates them in the market.
You mentioned omnipresence. There's two other pillars that is part of Listings Lab method that I think you should touch on because it's really important, I feel.
Yeah. So the first one is always relevance or relevancy. And the reason why that's so important is that I think a lot of the time, if a message isn't landing, there's way too much noise out there, right? So if you're not relevant, you're annoying. Right? So if you put a message out there and you're omnipresent and you put it in front of people a million times and it's not a relevant message, it's just going to irritate people. Really, at the end of the day, it's a waste of money. So what we want to be doing is putting really highly relevant information, content, which is, again, why we always say focus breeds excellence. We need to niche down. You cannot be everything to everyone. So it's figuring out who we're targeting and then getting to know those people on a deeper level, which is pains, problems, fears, desires. Marketing at the end of the day is just psychology.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because one of our podcasts we talked about was how does someone figure out their unique selling proposition? And if they're in the business, how do they know what their USP is? Like, do they figure that out after 10 transactions, or are they doing that at the very beginning from the get-go?
So I'm a big believer that it's not really about you, it's about what they need. So your value proposition, or whatever you want to call it, is based on what they need, not what you want to provide. And so understanding where the transition is happening in their life, what they need, what their fears are, what their concerns are, what their daily lives look like, then you can tailor your services to meet those needs, as opposed to the other way around.
Okay. Would that not mean that you're now catering to a lot of people?
No, so I'll give you an example. So this is kind of like a really specific example, but I think that I need to go extreme to make it make sense. So we had a woman come into our program. She was in New York City. She wanted to specialize in corporate women, like A-type corporate women who were like high achieving, don't have a lot of time, are, you know, working on Wall Street or, you know, working in law firms, things like that. Now, the biggest issue that a lot of these women were having is that like they don't have time, but they're also very controlling. So what would happen is, you know, listings would come out for the week. And then, you know, by the time she had time to actually go through all the listings and she wanted to see everything and like all of this craziness, they were either gone or, I mean, things that, I mean, your normal market in New York moves really quickly. So the solution, or like one of the steps of the process that we built out was, okay, so we have to make an agreement that you have a very, very solid list of must-haves. And then every must-have or would be nice is ranked with a specific value. Then every listing that comes on the market gets ranked. We only see the top 3. We go out once or twice a week. We only see the top 3 listings. And I get to make the decision of like, these are the top 3 based on your criteria. Here are the reports. Like it catered to everything about that client. They wanted the report, they wanted to see the top 3 in the ranking, and they only had time to see 3 properties a week. So what ended up happening is like all of her business boomed in terms of our ads, but her business also boomed in terms of referrals, because every other woman was like, hey, you know what? Like, everyone in my office needs to work with you because you actually understand and you've catered your services to basically our lifestyle.
There's 6 really important steps that an agent needs to make to get to that next level. What are some of the core things that they need to have? Can you give us like some insight of what you teach someone before they enter their program? Before they enter your program, sorry.
Before they enter our program?
Yeah, what do they need to have? What are they lacking? What are most agents lacking in their business?
So I would say automation, vulnerability.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, go ahead. I would say like a proper social media audience platform that you're actually like, if you think about it in terms of like from a social media standpoint, there's always those influencers that you follow and you feel like you know them, but there's 2 different kinds of like I'll call it celebrity. There's the celebrity like Brad Pitt that is like on the pedestal celebrity that like if you saw him walking down the street, you'd be like, oh my God, that's Brad Pitt, but you'd never go up and high five him. But then there's like the celebrity like Chip and Joanna Gaines or like people like that who are like down to earth, you feel like you know them. That's the kind of celebrity that you're going after. You're not going after this on the pedestal, unachievable, you know, because then what ends up happening is you end up alienating the people who you want to work with, and they're going to think, oh, like she doesn't have time to work with me, or like, sorry, Jenny?
It wouldn't be bad meeting Brad Pitt though.
I agree. Totally. But it's basically like it's different kinds of influence. You want to be like a achievable influencer. You want to be at that level where people see you as a real human being that they can contact, that they can call, that they can be in touch with. When people go through our programs, one of the first things that they start to notice is that like they get recognized everywhere. So like they go to the coffee shop, people are like, oh my gosh, like you're Jenny, right? Or, you know, they go out, they go to the grocery store, and like the first joke that we always get back is, I can't go grocery shopping in my pajamas anymore, right? Because people are recognizing me. But so I would say that like that kind of like approaching your social media from a place of value and not as a place of promotion. Because I think a lot of social media profiles in the real estate industry, they look like a series of ads. And when we're on social media, and there's lots of studies that have kind of gone through this. When we see something that looks like an ad, smells like an ad, talks like an ad, we actually scroll faster. So what's happening is we're actually scrolling past that content because we're actually repelled by it. So you want the content to feel as less addy as possible. So, more relaxed photography, brighter photos, longer form captions, videos where you don't necessarily look perfect, like things where people are and what you do over time is you train that audience to actually look for your content.
Yeah, I think you emulate that really, really well on your social media handle. Oop, the lights just went on here because we're not moving. And I would say every post, you look very vulnerable and very open and very approachable. Like you look like a human being and not someone who is posing next to a, high-end Lamborghini and I'm worried about you.
Yeah. And I think people are looking for that. They're looking for that, that relatability. People want to see themselves in your life. If you can share video and stories and things like that of clients that you're working with, even better. Case studies are so powerful. But I think that so many people go, those real estate photos of them with their crossed arms or the ones with the agent on the phone. And it's just I get that you're trying to portray that you're successful and busy, but at the end of the day, people actually, a lot of the time, don't want that. Because then they're thinking, is this person even going to have time for me?
Right. Yeah.
Right? So they need to feel that connection of this person's actually going to care about me and take me through this process. They have a proven process. I can trust them, but they're also going to have time and they're going to have that attention to detail that I need and that knowledge that I don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can someone, one of them was intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
have intimacy and in your post and in the content that you're putting out there. Someone like me who's very private, having I need a little bit of push to get the story out. I'm sure you've counted a lot of new members who sign on and they're very, very intimidated by that. So how do you get them to open up a little bit more to their clients and to their leads?
It is a process, and by no means are we going with anybody from 0 to 100. I think that you are allowed to take what you want to share and not share all of it. I think there's this concept that if you follow certain influencers or you follow certain celebrities that everything about them, and you don't. They have chosen what it is that they're sharing and the vulnerability that they're sharing, but there's a whole other side of their lives that you have no idea about. And so understanding that you get to create that intimacy, that relatability. So within the intimacy pillar, we talk about connection, community, and conversation. So really the intimacy part is really about fostering connection and fostering conversation. And so if someone doesn't feel comfortable enough to hit you up in your DMs and have a conversation, we're doing it wrong. Right? And it's really the idea of, I read that and it resonated with me, and ask me questions, have this conversation, because conversations will always lead to business and always lead to more depth and more connection. If you're choosing between an agent that you've seen on a billboard or an agent that you've actually had a DM conversation with who actually showed themselves to be a caring human, you're going to choose the one that you feel the more connected with. Mm-hmm. So from the intimacy perspective, in terms of some of it's kind of getting over yourself. And I know that that's really hard. And I've told the most vulnerable version of my story. If I told it to Entrepreneur Magazine, most terrifying day of my life. But when I did that, it was one of those things that I was actually, just that day, I felt ready. And it wasn't something that I forced out. I just felt ready that day. And I was like, you know what? It's time for this to come out. I feel like I can help other people with my story. And the more that we think about the fact that I think a lot of that privacy or that fear of putting something out there is fear of judgment. Yeah. And we are always our own worst critics. We're always the people who are the most judgmental of ourselves. And the thing that we fear is that the things that we don't like about ourselves or the things that we judge about ourselves will get reflected back. That someone else is going to read something about us and send us a message or send us a comment that is exactly what our insecurity is. Because that's the worst thing that can happen. Right? And I think that when I go about kind of helping people tell their story, that going down that road of what's the worst thing that can happen and are you going to die? And you're not.
I have to say, I read your article and it actually gave me a lot of courage to share my side of the story as well, and my personal life of the divorce. And it's gotten me to where I am today. And I so thank you for that, because it's not easy to share a personal story like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was protecting. I know for sure I didn't want to be judged, or I didn't want to make it look like I failed because I'm so successful in my business side of things. How can I not be successful in my personal life? And so by hearing your story in the magazine, it really helped me go through this process. For sure.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And honestly, it's so interesting because Jenny, like I kind of hear about your life, but kind of secondhand.
Well, Cassie flew out to help me.
Yeah.
Process. And so I called her up. I think I flew her out within like 48 hours, 72 hours.
Yeah.
She's well organized. I did not realize how organized she was, but she basically packed all my stuff, helped me pack, move out of the house, and basically, like, I don't know how many, I probably cried so many times. Honestly, I don't remember. It was so dramatic, but she was.
Oh, she's amazing. If you guys don't know Jenny's sister, Cassie's amazing, and she's got a pile of kids. Of course she's organized.
All of that we are mentioning her on this podcast. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that element of also telling your story and talking about the things that feel sticky, there's something really cathartic about it. And getting it out there and actually like getting support from the people in your following, in your audience, in your community. Like, I found that when I told that story, I was so worried about judgment, but all I got back was love. Yeah. No, I didn't get one nasty message from anybody.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised. I don't think I think most people are like, oh, Jenny's going to be okay because she's can handle herself.
Yeah.
For the most part, I don't think, and nobody bothered me. No. My closest friends knows what happens, but for the most part, like, I think everybody's like, okay, just Jenny moved on and life happens, and and this could be a whole different topic about relationships and whether they're one ever the one, but yeah, that's it's a whole new experience for me right now.
And that element of vulnerability too, from a business standpoint, like, there are people who are going through a similar situation. And the people will gravitate towards the content that is relevant to them. So if someone's reading something that, they haven't experienced, then they're going to say, oh my gosh, she shared that. That's so great. But if they're going through that experience, say someone's reading or watching your content and they're going through a divorce or something similar is happening to them, they're going to say, hey, I want to work with this person. She really is going to understand what I'm going through.
Totally.
And actually, I've had a couple of agents come up to me for wanting to go for coffee, or we've gone for coffee, to talk about their personal life. And it was not real estate related, but to share, what should they do, or ask for advice. Yeah, it was really close to my heart that they asked and shared.
We need more of that in the world.
Totally.
Yeah. I think because I was kind of raised to be have a really hard shell, and and just being
very
Asian, being born, moving out of the house when I was 18, 19 years old. I just had to develop a tough skin. So yes.
Oh, totally. My grandfather, we used to have this game, my Chinese grandfather, that I would tell him every time I got off the phone. I would tell him I love him so that he would squirm, and it was just what kind of part of it. right? I get it. And then I have the other side of my family that like is like a bunch of teddy bears and mushy. So I got to kind of experience both. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. So if someone's sharing their story online and then they capture this new client and they develop this relationship that's long term, how else can someone like fill their pipeline, especially during this COVID where social distance and you're trying to put out as much information as possible, but then you're limited to like how to meet them or when to meet them. Do you have any advice for someone who's kind of going through this situation right now?
Yeah, so I would say most of the agents that we're working with now, they're having their best years, and it's because they've been so consistent. I think consistency is the most important thing that I can kind of bring up. Your pipeline will reflect how consistent you are, which is one of the reasons why the omnipresence is built out the way that it is, because it's kind of consistency on autopilot. But it is so important to don't ignore the things that are happening in the world. You want to be talking about relevant topics and content, but at the same time, people need to be given the distilled version. So I think so many agents out there right now are throwing out a whole bunch of market stats and trying to tell people that the market's okay. The market's okay. The market's resilient. Like, especially here, like we're not crashing. But what they're doing is they're throwing out a bunch of infographics, and the general public doesn't know how to read those. So I think the one line that I can say that is probably the most, if you take one line from this entire conversation, it's here's what this means for you. So here's what's going on in the market. Here's everything that's going on. These are the market stats. These are the detached, the townhomes, the condos, the whatever. Here's what it means for you. So this is like, distill it down into, from a human capacity, this is what you need to know. And this is my prediction of where things are going, and this is why.
Actually, and just to the last conversation and tying in this point as well, I honestly 100% agree with what you've been saying. It's basically looking at the human or humanized side of the person behind the real estate and how they can actually help the client, put themselves in the client's shoes so that we can solve a problem for them.
Yeah.
Recently on our channel, I mean, we're not as automated as you though, Jess, so I'll have to look into that. But the two most vulnerable stories that we shared recently, one was by my brother. He shared a masculine story where it was with client permission, but it was just this story of success that we had with one of our male clients. And when he purchased his first house, he's like a strong dude. He broke down and he cried. But the story that was shared with permission, and it was kind of like one of those things, like, he did it, he achieved it, he did it for his family, and we're behind that. And then the other one that I had shared was, I wasn't feeling like filming one day. I was swollen and bloated. I was very pregnant, could hardly, I wasn't having a good day. And I filmed how to move into a larger home successfully with a family. But the interesting thing was, for both of those videos, because people relate to them, and that wasn't why we released them, but case in point to what you just said, we've never had so many direct messages from our videos.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't perfect.
No, people are repelled by perfection. Yeah.
That's one of the questions I want to ask is, should the videos look a little bit more raw and like from your iPhone, or should you be investing in a good camera, the gimbal? Like, there's just so many tools out there.
Yeah. So basically, when we say like we don't want them to be really polished, like if the kind of video that you use on YouTube versus on Facebook and Instagram, they're very different, right? The mistakes that I see a lot of agents making are the banners and the music and the fade-ins and like things like that feel very overproduced. What people want if you think about what Facebook and Instagram are, they're social platforms, they're social networking. They're not intended for businesses to interact and build client bases. They're intended to have humans be able to connect with other humans online. So the type of content that works really well is actually going to be like raw but not messy. So yes, use the gimbal. Yes, make sure that you're well lit. Make sure that there's not a ton of background noise, things like that. But at the same time, don't overproduce it. Don't we've all seen the females who over filter, and they end up kind of like, you're just like, oh, you just look like a doll, right? And like, so people don't want to see that. You have pores. You have you want to look like a real person, but at the same time, it's also really important that there's no messiness in the content that it's distracting from the message. So the answer to your question about the cameras, some of it can be done with, if you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a camera, our camera phones are incredible now, right? Like, they're incredible. You can do a lot with a really good iPhone or a really good like Samsung camera. You don't need a DSLR, and you don't need all the tech. The most important things that are in a video are going to be lighting and sound.
Now you have all these posts and it's very organic and it's very authentic. The call to action, is it advisable to add like your phone number and like, hey, reach out at the end of the post, or do you let that naturally happen?
It depends on the post. So I would say that like you have to use kind of common sense with this. Don't put phone numbers at the bottom of posts. It's just it's not necessary. If you in your actual profile have a call and an email button as a business profile, that's all you need. There's two different kinds of call to actions. There's soft call to actions and there's hard call to actions, right? So a soft call to action is going to be something like double tap if you agree, or comment below if you've ever blah blah blah, drop your favorite emoji, things like that. Those are softer call to actions. And basically what you're doing with something like that is training your audience to take an action, so that they get used to interacting with your profile. A harder call to action is going to be something like a swipe up in your stories, swipe up to register. If you're doing something from like a new development standpoint, or send me a DM, or comment below if you want this information, something like that. What I suggest doing, and I do this a lot in my Facebook group, is take conversation and move it into the DMs. So I use something called two-step posts quite often. And it'll be like, do you want, I have a new 7-figure agent blueprint that I've created. Do you want it? People will comment below saying, yes, I want it. Great. Then I'll send a message back underneath that says, do you mind? Do I have your permission to send it to you in a direct message? They say yes. I send it to them in a direct message. I can foster a conversation in DMs from that point.
Should someone, I think you did a video or Facebook Live on this topic about having a personal account versus a business account? Mm-hmm. Can you comment on that?
For sure. So on Facebook, you want to have both. You want to have your business page and you want a personal profile. Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is they don't put any business stuff on their personal profile. Your personal profile is your network. It's all the people who actually know you, love you, want to refer to you, and need to be reminded that you are really awesome at what you do, and that you actually can give value. Right? So we want to make sure that you're putting similar content on both places. Now, Instagram's a different story. I'm a really big believer that Instagram can be a huge time suck. So you should have one account, right? So you should have one account that is business and personal, because really what people on Instagram don't want is only the business stuff. It's not, they don't only want the business, they also want the personal stuff. And you have to remember, with social platforms like Instagram, people only move every 3 to 7 years on an average. You have to give them a reason to follow you the rest of the time. And that's the personal stuff. It's the connection stuff. It's the stories. It's the funny videos. It's the, like, my husband dancing in the car every time we go out, right? Like, it's that stuff it's the infotainment stuff that actually keeps them following. And that's what you want. Otherwise, you're going to have consistent churn on your account.
Right. Right.
Great points.
Yeah. It's a love-hate relationship with me with social media.
Me too.
I take it off my phone actually quite often and for long periods of time just because I just don't even want to go on it. That's why I have Miranda here to handle all that. Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions. Is there anything else before we go on to our 10 rapid fire questions?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was a thing. No, I don't think so. Just thanks so much for having me.
This is really interesting information because I wish I signed up to a coach and program like yours a lot earlier because I'm scrambling. Like when it took me, I think I didn't sign up to Instagram until like 2014, 2015. Like I was even Facebook as well. And I signed up because I felt like I was like left behind. I needed to get out there, needed something a little more cost effective to reach out to clients. So, I wish I signed up to something like yours where I can kind of like share my story a little bit more and relate to people a lot more. For me, my clients are more developers, so it's a whole different but Toni definitely reaches out to more like real buyers and sellers day to day.
I built this program to be the program, like this program's the program I wish that I had 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It sounds really, really valuable.
It's a listings lab method. Where can they find you?
So thelistingslab.com, or I think my Facebook group, honestly, is probably the best place to get a really great feel for us, which is just the Listings Lab method for real estate agents. If you look for that on Facebook, you'll find.
Because the information is so valuable and nobody puts out random posts and they're not posting their listings and you get all that noise, so it's actually very, very valuable if you sign on to this community, online community. So let's start the 10 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
Right. Okay. How do you clear your mind at the end of the day?
I take a bath.
Ooh. That's a good one. Am I going next? We're alternating?
Go ahead.
Okay. What are you currently reading?
I'm reading, hang on, I started it like yesterday. I've got it right here. Busting Loose from the Money Game.
Ooh, awesome.
Busting Loose, what is that about?
It's basically like the energetics of money.
Okay. What's a cause that's important to you?
Domestic violence. So anything to do with domestic violence. We actually have considered even like opening a nonprofit arm of our business as well. But I'm also looking for a charity or an organization to like partner with right now.
I don't think you bring that up anywhere on the About You page on the Listings Lab. I know I read it on the Entrepreneur magazine, but there's nothing else mentioned anywhere else. Was that purposely done?
No, I think that like sometimes we just have to be concise. And I actually have that entrepreneur article in my email campaigns so that we send it out a couple of times so that people really get a feel. If somebody doesn't like me because of that, I don't want to work with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, name one thing you learned the hard way as a real estate agent.
Not to work with clients that I don't like. Fire fast.
100%. Okay,
I think we talked about that.
We did talk about
that. How would you define yourself in 3 words?
Motivated, generous, and visionary.
I love that you're so concise. What is one skill you learned from your mom that you're most thankful for?
Empathy.
What's the best thing that happened to you this year?
That's a good one. My team's grown. I have more space.
All online? Like you guys don't have an office space or anything?
We do have an office in Toronto that we move into on Monday. But our team is spread out. San Diego, we have Idaho, San Diego, Montreal, Saskatchewan. We're all over the place.
Yeah, actually, one question that we didn't get to ask is, where's most of your market share?
We're about 45% Canada, 55% US.
What is one pattern or behavior you see from your clients where every agent must possess to be successful? Is there radical responsibility? So I think that there's a lot of people who put themselves in like victim mode of like life is happening to them. And the truth really is we are all responsible for 100% of our results.
And if we want something more, we need to take radical responsibility of what we've done in the past to get us to where we are, and what we need to change in order to get where we want to go.
Awesome. Well, we will sign off right now. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
Sounds good.